So Japan just announced that they are fully reopening its borders to foreigners starting next week. And about a year ago, I made a video sharing top 8 things to know before coming to Japan. And while that list is still valid today, I wanted to add 7 more tips from a local perspective that I'm pretty sure you'll thank me later for. As usual, it's going to be pretty random and brutally honest, so buckle up and let's get right into it. I'm genuinely curious to know what you guys think about this, whether you guys are male or female. Because I was literally made fun of back when I was in the States for sitting on the toilet seat and peeing. Literally while I was scripting this video, my Japanese American friend Shoda said, "Who sits on the toilet and pees?" Like, what? To me, it's just how I was brought up here. All my Japanese friends sit and pee, and in fact, this study conducted by one of Japan's major companies shows that more than 62% of Japanese men do the same, and that number is rapidly increasing each year. Although 70% of Japanese men actually do prefer standing up. I think it shows how much Japanese people care about others and keep places as clean as possible. When I lived with my Nigerian friend Jesse though, the other Japanese roommate Masato and I would always complain about how he would stand up when peeing. But we only gave him an exemption because he told us his BBC was big enough to touch the bottom of the toilet when he sits down. So I mean, nobody cares about what you do if you live alone, but if you decide to coexist with others or visit your Japanese friend's place, do them a favor by sitting down while peeing. Come on, it's not that hard. Well, needless to say, you won't find everything you have in your country in Japan. As someone who has lived in multiple countries, I'd say it's best to live with what we already have in Japan and adjust to the lifestyle here. That being said, here are the few things I think you might want to bring. Deodorant. So many studies show that Japanese people, among other East Asians, genetically have less of these smelly sweat glands called apocrine glands, making body odor less of a problem for us. These stinky glands are commonly found in non-East Asians' armpits and also ears, making their earwax kind of wet unlike our dry and flaky ones. So simply put, as much as I hate to put it this way, if your earwax is wet, we might think you're stinky. Since Japanese people with these smelly sweat glands are super rare here, we're really sensitive to the smell. And as terrible as it sounds, we Japanese people definitely talk about the people with this smell behind their back all the time. Those people are called wakiga in Japanese. If you're interested, look it up. In fact, it's so rare that if someone falls into this small percentage, instead of buying deodorant, many people will choose to get these glands surgically removed, and it's covered by our national health insurance as something you need. You might even come across these advertisements on the street. Again, this is something you definitely won't find in Japan. In fact, I'd never seen this type of deodorant until I went to the States. So if you use one, please don't forget to pack one in your suitcase. Also, another thing is that since Japanese sizes typically run small, it might be hard to find clothes and shoes that fit you, especially shoes. If you don't have good quality durable shoes that are actually your size, you're gonna have a really hard time because you'll be walking a lot. Let's talk about some non-tourist trap looking tourist traps. By that I mean, it's a type of place I see so many foreigners go to, but it makes me go, そこ行きたい気持ちもわかるけど、そこ行くんやったらあそこ行った方がええのにな kind of place. Ichiran ramen. I mean, I get it. Their whole system where you can eat ramen noodles in private, it's the perfect place for introverts. But the quality of the ramen itself though, it's so meh, and they crank up the prices knowing foreigners will still come to eat their overpriced mediocre ramen. I always recommend people go to the more local ramen shops, but if you were to visit a chain, I couldn't recommend Tenkaippin and Marugen enough, as they are both favorite among other Japanese people as well. Capsule hotels. So let me make one thing clear. Capsule hotel or capsule hotels were originally meant for Japanese office workers. It was a cheap place people would go to get a few hours of sleep before going back to their 12-hour shifts. But nowadays, since its unique concept became popular among foreigners, it's not as cheap as it used to be or should be. So instead of spending your precious money to sleep in a shitty cubicle, I highly recommend you go to a Japanese love hotel. I guarantee you 100% that you have more unique experience, more privacy, and some magical time, if you know what I mean. Family Mart. Can someone please explain how Family Mart became so overrated? For some reason, it seems like every foreigner in Japan overhypes Famima, and I don't get it. Is it the name, its brand colors, or the Famima wrap that Miyachi and Matcan made? Please explain because I'm so confused. If you're wondering what the real superior konbini in Japan is, it's no doubt 7-Eleven. This isn't even my subjective opinion because it's always the consensus among my Japanese friends. I also looked up every survey done by Japanese people's favorite convenience, and 7-Eleven always, without fail, comes top in the ranking. I even made a video with my friend Shota doing a side-by-side comparison of various products from both 7-Eleven and Family Mart. And for pretty much everything, we came to the conclusion that 7-Eleven products tasted better. So guys, please give the Japanese 7-Eleven a chance. I promise it's not the same as the one you might be used to. So one of the questions I get asked the most is, Shun, how can I make Japanese friends? What can I do to make friends with a cool, smart, and handsome person like you, Shun? Well, jokes aside, I have to admit that Japanese people are infamous for not being able to make friends very easily. But trust me, as much as people say that, it's hard for me to make friends with a non-Japanese person as well. And I'm talking about like the actual friends, not the superficial kind you just add on Facebook and never speak to again. So I asked myself, what kind of foreigners do I usually get along with as a Japanese person? And here's my answer. In Japan, people are not as friendly as Westerners in the early stages, right? They are more reserved and almost close-minded at first compared to someone like you. And I think the hardship of making new Japanese friends lies in this, the difficulty of breaking the ice. So how do Japanese people do it? We ask questions, but not about the weather or favorite colors. It all comes down to knowing what questions to ask and also what their answers tell about the type of person they are. For example, in the States, when someone tells you that they're homeschooled, for example, that alone gives you some idea of what they're like, right? Or you may talk about the 16 personalities or zodiac signs, all of which I had no idea about, and I was really like emotionally drained trying to keep up with it all. Because in Japan, those questions are completely different. We ask questions such as, what blood type are you? What school club are you in? If they were in a soccer club, for example, you'd assume that they are extroverted with a very active social life. Or you may get asked, do you like ramen or soba noodles? Or are you an M or S? Are you Rikei or Bunke? Without knowing any Japanese culture, you might think, how can one make such quick assumptions based on these questions? But trust me, Japanese people love to put people into boxes and stick with the ones within their box. So these kinds of conversations play a pretty significant role when it comes to meeting someone in Japan. So my top advice is to study the culture beforehand. Because if we find something that we can relate to, it becomes so much easier for us to let our guard down and open up to people. Maybe even more so than Westerners in the long run. But if you're too lazy to do the research, I may or may not have compiled a list of questions you can ask Japanese people that'll actually get the conversation going. So if you're interested, please let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment down below so I know it's worth making a separate video about. Okay, out of everything I mentioned in this video, this is probably the most important thing. Yet, I'm shocked that people don't really know about this, and it's not really talked about online either, which is what to do in case of emergency. Like getting involved in an accident, getting into a fight, or getting injured, which I hope won't happen to any of you guys, but if it did, this is what you should do. If you witness or are in an emergency situation that needs help from the police, please call 110. For example, in case of a traffic accident, violence, assault, snatching, things like that, call 110. And if you need immediate help from the fire department or need an ambulance, call 119. Yes, in Japan we have different numbers for different situations as opposed to, let's say, in the States where it's always 911. And here's the list of numbers that I mentioned along with some more that may be helpful for you guys, so take a screenshot of it for your future reference. Also, they have operators who speak English and other languages, so please don't hesitate to call these numbers if needed. With that being said, I can't emphasize enough how knowing even a little bit of Japanese can be a lifesaver when you come here. And if you're one of those people like me who doesn't know which language learning service to pick from the countless options out there, I recommend Rosetta Stone. What I really liked about their app is that it lets you immerse yourself in your target language with pictures and audio instead of relying on translations, so you can learn it in a really natural and intuitive way. I also like that they have this speech recognition technology where it corrects your pronunciation. So you basically speak into the app on your phone, and if you mispronounce something, they'll make you try again. Meaning you get continuous feedback, which is so important when it comes to learning a new language. Their lifetime subscription is usually $299, but with my link in the description, you can get it for almost 40% off, which is only $179 US. So if you're interested, please don't miss out on this opportunity, and thank you Rosetta Stone for sponsoring today's video. So Japan has this image of being extremely safe, and I'm sure you've come across videos online where people leave their valuables unattended and not have it stolen. Or maybe you've even heard Japanese locals bragging about its safety. But let's not make the mistake of thinking this country is free of petty crimes, like theft. Actually, in the 25 years of my life in Japan, I've had a lot of things stolen. Some of the common things people steal are things like wallets, phones, umbrellas, bicycles, or even women's underwear. Yeah, people steal women's underwear. Like all the time. Since houses and apartments in Japan are so small, there's pretty much no space for a dryer even if you wanted one. So 70% of people actually air dry their clothes outside. I'm sorry in advance, but this is just something you might need to get used to. However, if you're a girl who ends up living on the first floor of an apartment in Japan, you might want to consider air drying your clothes inside your room, not the outside. I don't mean to scare you or anything, but I just feel like a lot of these videos online set on unrealistic expectations for foreigners when it comes to safety in Japan. So my point is, don't let your guard down just because you're in Japan, especially in the city. If there's one law in Japan that isn't talked about enough, but I think you should be careful of, it's definitely this: the Defamation Law. In Japan, you can literally sue someone for defamation if they damage your public image. Whoa, hold up, I'm not going to Japan to damage anyone's image. Is that what you're thinking? What makes this law different in Japan and actually kinda scary is that it applies even if the statements are true. Let me explain. A few years ago, one of my female friends found out that her long-term boyfriend was cheating on her with multiple women. As kinda expected, she lost her sanity and shared everything he did on her Instagram stories. Yeah, very intense. And later on, she got sued by her boyfriend for publicly damaging his reputation. And as a result, she was fined a few thousand US dollars. Can you even imagine getting cheated on and having to pay a few $1,000s? Only in Japan. Another example is writing a review. I've heard so many cases where customers got sued for writing an honest review online about their experience with a product or service, even though their statements were completely true. Well, with this law specifically, the offense cannot be prosecuted without a complaint by the victim, so it's not like you're gonna get charged every time you write a review online or anything, but you might want to be a bit careful of what you say or what you write online here in Japan. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you guys found it somewhat helpful, and if you guys can think of other important things that I didn't mention in this video, which I'm sure there are a lot, please don't forget to comment down below. I'm really excited for you guys to finally visit Japan, and if you happen to see me on the street, please don't be a stranger, okay? Alright, see you guys around. Peace!